Picture telling someone that Australia built a fence so enormous it spans thousands of kilometers, outstretching even the Great Wall of China. But here's the twist. It wasn't built to fend off armies, but to keep rabbits and wild dogs from taking over the countryside. Most people would probably burst out laughing or shoot you a skeptical look, convinced you're spinning a tall tale. For decades, these fences were the butt of jokes around the world. A quirky bit of Aussie folklore, almost too strange to believe. The thought of fencing off an entire continent just to block out rabbits and wild dogs sounded ridiculous, even pointless to outsiders. People pictured a few men toiling under the blazing sun, wrestling with wire in a never-ending struggle against nature itself. But Australia is a place of extremes, where minor issues can spiral into national emergencies. The sheer size of the land, and its problems, are beyond what most can imagine. What the world missed was this. In Australia, unchecked pests like rabbits and wild dogs can wipe out entire regions, transforming rich farmland into desolate wasteland in no time. These fences weren't a joke. They were a bold, inventive answer to an ecological disaster threatening thousands of families' livelihoods. The world watched, expecting the fences to crumble and the wild to win. But Australia proved everyone wrong. Over time, these fences became a symbol of Australia's unique challenges and the resourceful, determined spirit of its people. In the end, the joke was on the skeptics. What seemed absurd at first turned out to be a daring act of survival and ingenuity. The men and women who built and maintained these fences showed remarkable grit, transforming a wild idea into a lifeline for the land. These fences didn't just save crops. They helped restore balance to entire ecosystems, reshaping the continent and leaving a legacy you can still spot from space. Why build a fence in the middle of nowhere? At first glance, it seems like an odd thing to do, erecting a barrier that stretches for miles across empty, sun-baked land. But behind this fence lies a story of unintended consequences and a desperate struggle to protect a fragile ecosystem. It all started with a well-intentioned mistake, a decision that would change the face of Australia forever. In 1859, Thomas Austin, an English settler, imported 24 European rabbits to Australia for hunting on his estate. He thought a few rabbits would make for good sport and a taste of home. But with no natural predators and an abundance of food, those rabbits multiplied at an astonishing rate. Within decades, their numbers exploded into the billions, overrunning the continent and creating one of the world's worst ecological disasters. The rabbits devoured crops, stripped native vegetation bare, and caused massive soil erosion. Farmland was left barren, and native species struggled to survive. The land became riddled with burrows, turning once productive fields into dangerous terrain for livestock and people alike. The very ground seemed to collapse underfoot. Facing disaster, Western Australia began building the rabbit-proof fence in 1901. It was an ambitious project, born out of necessity and hope. The plan was bold, a wire barrier stretching over 1,800 kilometers, from coast to coast, designed to halt the relentless rabbit invasion and protect the land that remained. Men braved scorching heat, dust storms, and isolation to build it, using wire netting buried deep in the ground to stop rabbits from burrowing underneath. It was a feat of endurance and determination. For farmers, the fence was more than just a barrier. It was a fragile line of defense, a shield against an unstoppable force, and a last hope to save their livelihoods. The fence became a symbol of resistance, more than just wire and posts. It was a stand against ecological collapse, a testament to human ingenuity and the will to fight back. It marked a desperate attempt to reclaim the land, to restore balance, and to protect the future of Australia's unique environment. This far and no further. The fence was a line drawn not just in the soil, but in history. Australia drew a line in the sand, a bold statement that even in the middle of nowhere, some things are worth fighting for. If rabbits were a plague, dingoes were a terror to sheep. Dingoes, Australia's wild dogs, found easy prey in the flocks brought by settlers. They killed not just for food, but often wiped out dozens of sheep in a single night. The sheep industry, vital to Australia's economy, was under siege. Hunting dingoes wasn't enough. A bigger solution was needed. Enter the dingo fence, the world's longest fence, stretching over 5,600 kilometers. Its goal: create a dingo-free zone to protect southeastern sheep country. Building and maintaining it was a monumental task, crossing deserts, mountains, and plains. Boundary riders patrol it constantly, repairing damage and keeping nature at bay. The fence became a declaration of control over the wild, a lifeline for farmers. It's not just a barrier, it's a symbol of Australia's battle with its own wilderness. These fences didn't just sit there, they became part of the landscape, demanding constant care. The rabbit-proof fence slowed the invasion but couldn't stop the rabbits entirely. Any breach meant new colonies sprang up, turning the fence into more of a speed bump than a wall. The dingo fence, taller and stronger, proved more effective against its target. Inside the fence, sheep thrived. Outside, dingoes still roamed and losses were high. Maintaining the fences is a never-ending job: patrols, repairs, and battles with the elements. Over time, the fences became landmarks, shaping where people could farm and what they could raise. They influenced animal movement, created new ecosystems, and became woven into outback life. The fences dictated survival, economy, and daily life in the vast interior. They were more than barriers. They were living lines that changed the land, and they're still there, humming on the horizon. No one could have truly predicted what would happen when a continent was split by a fence stretching thousands of kilometers. The dingo fence, built to protect livestock, became much more than just a barrier. It became a force that would reshape the land and its inhabitants in ways no one imagined. The original focus was simple: keep sheep safe from dingoes. But nature is never simple. Ecosystems are intricate webs, where every creature plays a role, and changing one part can ripple through the whole system. With dingoes removed from one side, kangaroo and emu populations surged. Without their natural predator, these herbivores multiplied rapidly, far beyond what the land could support. The result? Overgrazing became rampant. Kangaroos and emus, now unchecked, competed fiercely with sheep for food, stripping the land of vegetation and leaving it vulnerable. Ironically, the fence meant to protect sheep ended up creating new problems just as severe, if not worse, than the ones it was built to solve. Overgrazing led to soil erosion and the formation of shifting sand dunes. The very landscape began to change, with once fertile ground turning barren and lifeless in places. On the dingo side, things were different. Predators kept kangaroo numbers in check, allowing plants to thrive and supporting a richer, more diverse array of wildlife. The balance of nature was maintained. The fence, unintentionally, became the world's largest ecological experiment, a living laboratory showing what happens when a top predator is removed from an ecosystem. But the story didn't end there. Foxes and feral cats, no longer threatened by dingoes, flourished. They preyed on native marsupials, pushing some species to the brink of extinction. So, while the fence protected sheep, it also unleashed new pests and caused harm to Australia's unique native animals, upsetting the delicate balance of the ecosystem. Two Australias emerged, one shaped by the absence of a single predator, the other by its presence. The difference is stark, visible even from the sky. The dingo fence became more than a boundary for sheep. It became a line between two worlds, each with its own story and consequences. And the consequences, both seen and unseen, were truly profound, reminding us that in nature, every action has a reaction, often far beyond what we expect. A century later, the true impact of Australia's fences is clear. The dingo fence revealed that top predators are essential to ecosystem health. Without dingoes, the land inside the fence became less stable and more prone to desertification. The dingo, once seen as a pest, turned out to be a keystone species holding the ecosystem together. Removing them led to overgrazing, soil loss, and declining land productivity. Economically, the fence saved sheep but cost the land's long-term health. Some now argue it's better to coexist with dingoes, using guardian animals, than to maintain the fence. The fence became an unintentional scientific laboratory. Two vast areas, one key difference: the presence of a predator. The data has been invaluable, proving ecological theories on a grand scale. What began as a desperate measure became a global case study. The fence's legacy is both practical and profound. It changed how we understand nature itself. The world stopped laughing as the fence's true impact became clear. What was once a quirky Australian oddity became a subject of global study. The dingo fence wasn't just a barrier, it was a tool for managing entire landscapes. Other countries began to look to Australia's fences for solutions to their own invasive species problems. The fences became blueprints for environmental management worldwide. The conversation shifted from good versus bad animals to understanding complex systems. The dingo fence is now both a success story and a cautionary tale. It forces us to ask, who are we protecting, and at what cost? The fences became icons, immortalized in books, films, and satellite images. Tourists visit, drawn by the audacity and history. Far from a joke, Australia's fences are now seen as one of humanity's boldest environmental experiments. What can the world learn from thousands of kilometers of wire in the desert? First, humility. Nature is more complex than we imagine, and simple fixes can create new problems. Removing a predator to save sheep can unravel an entire ecosystem. Second, persistence matters. The dingo fence works because it's relentlessly maintained. Sometimes, brute force solutions endure where high-tech ones fail. The fences force us to think on a continental, even geological scale. Decisions made generations ago still shape Australia today. The fences are a legacy, challenging us to consider the long-term impact of our actions. They reveal both our desire to control nature and the limits of that control. In the end, Australia's fences are a story of bold ideas, unintended consequences, and the ongoing dance between people and the wild.